All right, John Levy here today on the range with Nick Clearwater. And Nick, we're talking about myth versus reality today. Shoulder bend in the finish, how the shoulders bend and move in the finish position.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna let you go.
Okay. So one of the biggest misconceptions that your friends on the weekend might describe to you or explain a really bad shot would be a shot that's hit. And if it doesn't end up where you want, they might tell you something like you need to keep your head down more. That's such a common piece of advice. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that or heard it on the driving range, or weekend golfers I'm sure can relate to that all the time. That, unfortunately, though, is like one of the craziest things out of everything that you could measure and you could do really well or poorly. That is never the case. There are no golfers lifting their head up, and that's the cause of their poor shots. It's always something different than that.
So you hinted at it with our swing true motion study, and we understand the myth now. So what's reality supposed to look like?
So the best golfers do not hit and try to keep their shoulder bend forward. That's not it at all. Every golfer that we've ever tested hits the golf ball, and just as they're striking the ball and into their follow through for some amount of time, that varies from golfer to golfer, they're bending themselves backward. Meanwhile, your weekend golfers hitting, trying to keep their shoulder bent forward, that's a real problem to hit the ball high. It's a real simple solution to hitting the ground first before the golf ball, and hitting one that travels about that far and is really embarrassing. So the way they avoid that is bending forward and then starting to pull your arms in towards you, or extend your left wrist as a way to not strike the ground so far behind the ball so your friends laugh at you. All of those are just a poor understanding of how to swing. The best golfers are hitting the ball and bending themselves backward into the finish to alleviate the problem of hitting behind.
It's interesting when you talk about the best golfers. So let's say that I'm a little bit older, or I'm maybe less flexible. If I see Ricky Fowler swinging and I see him, I'm going to feel like I'm going to break my back. What would you say to that?
Yeah, so Ricky Fowler's swing as an example of someone who just does this part really well. His is just very noticeable. It isn't that he's doing anything unique to what good golfers do. It's the same thing for every good golfer. You just really recognize it when he's posing, and you can see how the top of his back is arched backwards and his shoulders are bent back more than his hips are. Anyone can do that, though, but you first need to understand what it is. So when someone hits a golf ball, your weight and your hips should be further towards the left than away from the target. And then into the follow through, you just support all of your weight onto your hips and your pelvis. And then the only bending backward that you really need to do is just with the top of your torso and your sternum upward. That's what you're seeing Ricky Fowler and a bunch of the best golfers on TV do when they hit the ball and have that perfect PGA Tour logo finish.
And if anything, it's actually probably more healthy for your back than hurting it, right?
Right. Staying bent forward and trying to turn and contort yourself to slow the swing down is a really nice way to start tearing up your lower back and your lumbar spine. So this is a safety mechanism as well. This is something that's going to make all of your shots better.
So you sort of demonstrated it there, but if I'm at home and I want a couple checkpoints to understand how my shoulders should be bending in the finish, what would you say?
Sure. So one way to practice how to do this and actually learn the form that all of the expert players articulate in every swing, especially with their driver, a way you could do this would be to hit a golf ball and hold your follow through, punch it down the fairway, and then take note of a few checkpoints. The first one is that your arms should feel like they're really straight. Your legs should feel really straight, your hips up as high as you can get them, and that there's just a little bend of your torso backward. If you run through each one of those checklists on a short swing, then you can start learning how to do this very easily, and it shouldn't take you a lot of time. If you recognize you're having a problem with one or two of those, then it's real easy just to hit another ball, try to do the same procedure again, and you'll organize your thoughts well enough to start going a little bit faster and hit the balls farther with the same form.
And really, to understand if you're doing it right is you're probably going to start hitting good golf shots.
Yeah, you should start hitting down much less with your driver. So the strike should be very level with that. You shouldn't be smashing the club into the turf well behind the ball with an iron. And the shots themselves should start going higher and farther.
So Nick, this is a pretty solid case of myth versus reality. Probably very good for people to understand.
Yeah, there are many cases like this. It's not the only one, but if you understood this very factual evidence we're just describing here, then you can really start playing better golf.
Well, we look forward to uncovering more of these.
Yes.
Swing better. Play better. GOLFTEC.